tiger mussels and the zebra mussels have restructured the ecology of the lower lakes such that, well, there's no other word for it. They've restructured it entirely. The whole pattern of life has changed in Lake Erie and both inshore and offshore. It continues to do. If the Asian carp come in, which of course DNA has been identified on the Lake Michigan side. If the Asian carp establish themselves in the Great Lakes, where they've totally disrupted the fisheries and ecosystems in the Mississippi River where they've become established, so that will extend into the Great Lakes. We're seeing a complete restructuring. There's no other word for it, and that's happening now.
Mr. Given the nature of biodiversity and the fact that species and land and waters don't respect boundaries, how effective would it be if Ontario was the only one who takes this initiative, given that the Great Lakes have boundary jurisdictions in other areas, and the federal government hasn't exactly had much interest in going down this road post-Kyoto? So can Ontario really make a difference in some of these respects when there are jurisdictional boundary issues?
Well, of course, for all intents and purposes, on the American side, there are 8 American states. On the Great Lakes, on the other side, there's one. There's the problems with Ontario. Quebec, of course, is in the river downstream, but on the lakes side, it's Ontario. The Americans are doing all sorts of stuff, billions of dollars of expenditures in the Great Lakes, and we are doing virtually nothing by comparison. So, can we make a difference? Absolutely. Can we buttress the American, parallel some of the American initiatives to get a combined effect on lakes? Yes, we can. And so it's a clean slate in terms of our opportunity, because the amount of we're doing compared to what they're doing on their side of the lake is trivial.
Commissioner, would you say that this report is a warning to a government that is looking at some serious cuts?
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is, because I know they have to make some tough decisions. Hey, we all understand that. But I think you want to get the big issues on the table, and in this case, a big international commitment on the table for consideration with respect. If we're going to disempower or undermine the capacity of the Ministry of Natural Resources or other ministries to look after their mandate, biodiversity being part of MNR's mandate, then we want to do that consciously with the full thought and consideration of the impact, both on the biodiversity itself, within the impact of the Ontario people, and in the international community.
Are you confident that this will be heard in the quarters of power that are looking for every dollar they can find?
I'm confident it'll be heard. I'm not confident it'll be addressed. but my job as Environment Commissioner is to bring these kind of things to their attention. It's about decision making that impacts the environment. I am going to be meeting this week with the 2 key ministers, the Minister of Environment, the Minister of Natural Resources, and so I'm confident I will be heard. I'm not sure. I understand they have some tough decisions to make.
More aggressive in telling private landowners what to do with their property in so much as it affects biodiversity?
Boy, that sounds like somebody I know on the other side of that issue. No, I think the government should be more aggressive in incenting landowners that have taken the option of preserving biodiversity. I think there's tremendous opportunities to incent them. My perspective is if you go to somebody's land and they've got the classic example is endangered species, not the only example, but that's one. You go to somebody who has an endangered species or a Carolinian forest, a threatened ecosystem, the first thing you should say to them is thank you, because it's still there. Because you go into thousands, hundreds of thousands of other acres and it's gone, right? So that's the posture I think the government should have towards those landowners. And then it's like, how can we help? How can we encourage you? How can we make you successful at keeping this here and keeping it functional? Those are the kind of questions that I would address, and that's how you approach landowners, not to constrain them, not to say that you're not allowed to do things, because I know I've reported that trees get cut ahead of get ahead of development. But if you go to them and say, no, we're going to reward you for keeping this here, that changes the discussion substantially. I even think that one of my friends in the legislature might agree with that.
Can you sort of just sum up the maple tree threat again? Like, what's the status of it, and what's threatening it, and
I'm sorry.
The maple.
Oh, okay, the maple. We got a double threat on it, if not more, but we have invasive species, Asian longhorn beetle, loose, contained in Ontario, and captured but loose in New York State and moving north. So that it is a major, just like the emerald ash borer, where we're cutting all the ash trees. You know that's happening right now. Well, there are a lot more maple trees, and the Asian Asian longhorn beetle is loose and moving north. That's in a relative short term, on the order of a decade. Longer term, we have climate change predictions for Southern Ontario, which will make much of Southern Ontario a climate condition that will not support the growth of maple trees. The ones we have would survive, but they would not be able to reproduce. And then we'd get drought and kill. The climate that supports maple trees will shift north to lands that don't support maple trees because of geology.
So, are you worried then, just to connect some more of these dots on the Asian longhorn beetle and the maple, are you worried that they're not doing enough to stop, like, what should they be doing more on this longhorn beetle?
Well, we're passively waiting for it to cross the border at the current time. In the past, when we had other invasives that were human health invasives, they had more monitoring, they had more checking, they tried various techniques to contain various things like the West Nile virus and such things. So, I mean, I don't know. I haven't studied it. I guess what you're asking me is it all right to do nothing? And I would suggest to you there must be some things we can do that will enhance the probability and mitigate the impact of this.
So more monitoring would help?
Certainly monitoring in the first instance, and then some quick monitoring and response. The way we contained it in Toronto when it was independently introduced from China into Toronto is we cut all the maple trees within a big section of northern Toronto right here, and it apparently has worked. So we can, to some degree, contain this thing. Maybe we can hold it south of the lake. There are options, but somebody's got to do something, and disempowering and removing capacity from the ministry is probably not the best thing to do.
You're saying there's no monitoring or response plan right now to fight the Asian longhorn beetle?
I'm not aware of any comprehensive response plan.
When you were saying that you were comparing Canada or Ontario to the United States and the money they're spending to save
On the Great Lakes, yes.
Yes, on the Great Lakes. What's happening in the States and what should be happening in Ontario?
Well, let me talk the second part of that. What's happening in Ontario is not much. I mean, we have an ongoing, very modest expenditure with the Ministry of Environment on the Great Lakes, but in the past we've done much, much more. In the United States, the federal government, President Obama, has released several $1 billion, which has been allocated to a myriad of projects throughout the lake states, and including things for all sorts of improvements in water quality and cleaning up contaminated sites and a wide variety of programs. But it's amounted to a multi-billion-dollar expenditure on improving the quality of the Great Lakes, as well as trying to contain the Asian carp invasion. But on our side, we only have a very, very modest long-term operation of Ministry of the Environment. There is something, but not like we've spent in the past, not like and certainly not like we're matching the United States. Great.